Well, good Sunday morning, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get open for business here and let's wake up the football gods. I hope everybody's had a great weekend. It is Sunday morning here, and it feels good to be here at the house. I do miss being at the Red Brick House, so I'll be honest with you. It's exciting seeing something change so much and finally beginning to see it from Michael falling through the kitchen floor to now seeing drywall hung in the place. It's coming along so good, and I feel good about it. But we have our Dallas Cowboys that are sneaking up on minicamp. We're sitting here on the 21st of May. We're 2.5 weeks away from minicamp. The season is upon us. We've already done the majority of the work of building the roster right now, and we feel like we have a good team in the making. Interesting take. When we talk about Dak Prescott, everybody says Dak Prescott is a failure. He's a fourth-round drafted quarterback. He's not the guy. You know, this year needs to be the year. Deep run in the playoffs, so the Cowboys need to move on from him and just get somebody else. Just, move up, tank the season, move up and draft a quarterback, or, go out and get Aaron Rodgers or do something. Just do something. Just get rid of him. Here's the thing that's interesting that's said by Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, I quote, "You got to have good players. I mean, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. If you don't have good players around him, you're not going to be a good team." That's it in a nutshell. That's it in a nutshell. You can't tell me that Dan Marino wasn't a great player. He went to one Super Bowl early in his career. Never got back. Peyton Manning, it took a long time before Peyton Manning got to the Super Bowl. And he had good players around him. You look around the NFL and say, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best that's ever done it. But it was 2011 since he's been there? People need to recognize that it's not just that. Now, a quarterback can lose the games for you. Not having a quarterback is not an option. You got to have a quarterback who can play. But as Roger Staubach said, and I quote, and I've got it on tape, it didn't matter how good a pass I threw if Drew Pearson didn't catch it. There would be no Hail Mary, no matter what I did, if Drew Pearson doesn't come down with it. And that's the truth. And in football, it can be, you can take any game. I don't care if it's a blowout or if it's a 1-point win. You can take 5 plays in that game that changes the outcome. 5 plays. And when we talk about the Dallas Cowboys' problem in the playoffs, more than anything else, I'm going to say, we've had some coaching issues, Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett's one of those guys that always seems to coach well in the regular season, but sometimes you have guys that when the pressure is on, that's when things happen. And I don't know if Kellen Moore is of that ilk as well, but I look at Kellen Moore during the season, like the year before, where we did 12 personnel really well, where we ended up moving the pocket with Dak Prescott, getting him outside, things that we were winning with, they come playoff time, disappear. Now, the haters out there will say, well, you're just blaming everybody but the quarterback. No, I'm not blaming everybody but the quarterback. The quarterback is at fault too. But you have to be perfect. in every phase of the game during the playoffs. You can't have a hiccup. But more than anything else for the Cowboys, I think the problem for them has been, and I can go back through with Tony Romo teams throughout the Jason Garrett era. What happens come playoff time more times than not, the battle of attrition that is football, we are beat up and we don't have that second tier of guys that can shoulder some of the load during the season, that can also step up in the playoffs. And when we lose a Tyron Smith, when we lose an Amari Cooper to a plantar fasciitis or Micah Gallup, the guys behind them aren't good enough to step up when it comes to being playoffs. When you have a Zeke Elliott who's got a knee issue 2 years in a row, hyperextended last year, tore MCL or sprained MCL, and not able to run the same way. When you lose a Tony Pollard, when you don't have deep pockets when it comes to wide receivers, when you don't have all those options, then one or two plays will kill you. And that's a fact. You have to have good players around him. More than anything, when you think about Bill Belichick, who is one of the greatest coaches in the history of football, Bill Belichick understood that it can't be about 8 or 9 great players on your team. He had guys that played roles. He used his roster 35 deep. When I lose a starter, I got somebody else I'm going to be able to plug in that's maybe not as good, but not far from it. You don't go from a Tyron Smith to a Chaz Green. And that's what we have to look at. And I feel like, for once, the Dallas Cowboys are getting that mentality. I'm still worried about the offensive line. I know they want to say Tyron Smith is our starter at left tackle, that Tyler Smith is going to be our guard, that Biotish is our center, that we've got Zach Martin, who's all world, and then we're bringing back, of course, Terrence Steele off of the ACL. I'm not so worried about those guys. I'm more worried about what's behind them when we lose one of those guys. We got Matt Lewinsky, which is, we're high on. We got Josh Ball, who's also working out at guard. We've got Chimo Igato, who has had starts for the Jets. So maybe we're not in as bad a position as I think. I still would like to add a wide receiver. And come June 1st, we may see some more big-name players cut as cap savings. And one of those might be DeAndre Hopkins. I feel like if you got a DeAndre Hopkins, now all of a sudden we have enough depth that we can do this marathon that is the NFL season. Here's an interesting take, because everybody has the Eagles. Oh, the Eagles, that automatically the Eagles are the best team in football. They're going back to the Super Bowl. And when I hear all that, that's when I kind of chuckle, because it's like, yeah, they're going to be wrong. Very rarely are they ever right on that. And it's always Eagle fans and fans of the Giants and Washington that are always the ones, that Cowboy fans, that are out there saying, get rid of Dak. Dak Prescott sucks. It's kind of interesting. The Cowboys are 8-3 with Dak Prescott going against the Eagles. 8-3. And one of those games, one of those losses was Dak Prescott's rookie season, when we had already clinched the division, and Dak only threw 8 passes. It was Tony Romo's last game. He played a series. And then we had Butt Fumble, who butt fumbled several times, turned the ball over, that finished out that game. So I don't know that you can really count that. Here's the numbers of Dak Prescott versus the Eagles in his career. 289 yards a game, 72.2% completion percentage, 19 TDs passing, 3 rushing TDs, only 5 turnovers, and a quarterback rating of 115. That, my friends, is what you call domination. So I can understand why the Eagles would want to get rid of Dak Prescott. I'm going to finish this off this morning. And don't forget, tonight, 5 o'clock Eastern, we'll have our Zoom call. Didn't have it last weekend with Mother's Day. Forgive me on that one. Ended up just being a long, long day of coming back from the Red Brick House, going to see my mom and everything else. It was just late. So we went past it. Forgive me. But we will have it today, 5 o'clock. So make sure you guys tune in. And I will be debuting something new to you guys, something that you tailgate members will be getting automatically. We've got the first prototype one just about done. In fact, I got to go out here and do a little more work on it to make sure it's ready to show you guys. As well as we're going to be getting in our silver footballs to go with our blue balls that we're going to be sending out to all of the channel members out there as well. So we are going to start taking care of you guys. Let's listen in to what they had to say about the Dallas Cowboys offense.
So Dak is among an elite list of quarterbacks to lead their team to 30 or more points in 3 straight seasons. Look at that. Just 2 Hall of Famers along there on the list and a couple of future ones, probably first ballot guys as well. I see you, Dak. I see you. Our analytics expert, Cynthia Freeland, has dropped her latest projections on the top 10 best offenses in the NFL. The Chiefs in the top spot there, Cowboys in the middle of the pack at 5, and the Jets round out the top 10. You can see the full list over at NFL.com and read her analysis. I highly recommend that. So let's dive in a little deeper into a few of Cynthia's projections and a few of these teams. And guys, let's start with the Cowboys because Cynthia has them at number 5. So the question is here, Baldy, I'm going to start with you. Will the Cowboys be a top 10 offense with a more run-focused approach?
I think they can be, MJ. You know, one of the things that they benefit by is nobody's taken the ball away more than the Cowboys in the last 2 years. 67 takeaways. The next closest team is 60. So they get short fields, and they get the ball back to the offense, number one. Tony Pollard, I'm a little concerned. I mean, last year he carried it 193 times. Like, he carried it 139 times in 3 years at Memphis. He's never carried the ball 200 times in his life. So they're going to miss Zeke. They're just going to miss him. They're going to miss the teammate, the practice guy, the game day guy. They're going to miss him. Now, Rojo's there, and they drafted Deuce Vaughn. I think they're going to miss him. But I am excited to see Mike McCarthy because I think he should have been the offense coordinator all along. And I'm excited to see Mike work with Dak because I think they're going to really relate to each other very well, especially throughout a game. And I do think the addition of Brandon Cooks is going to be a huge upgrade over what I saw from Michael Gallup a year ago.
Yeah, Baldy, they've been a top 4 scoring offense the last 2 years. The question for the Cowboys is they haven't shown up when it's playoff time.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
12 points and 17 points, both losses to end their season against the 49ers. That's a really good defense, but that doesn't look like a top offense when it counts. And so for me, there's a lot of pressure on this team for them to do it now. You start looking at their roster, you know, CeeDee Lamb's playing on a 5th-year option. Trayvon Diggs is in the final year of his contract. Tony Pollard on his franchise tag. Prescott and Parsons both up for extension soon. So you got to ask yourself a question, you know, is this core good enough to get it done, even with the regular season stats? I'm with you. Mike McCarthy calling plays should help. Brandon Cooks feels a huge need for that second wide receiver void. But every year we talk about the Cowboys and they're going to do this, they're going to do that. I'm going to wait for them to show it before I believe anything as far as their playoff success.
That's very prudent. And to your point, I think no more pressure than I think going into this season than what we've seen over the past maybe 3 or 4 years around this Cowboys team. All right, next on this list, at number 6, Cynthia has the 49ers.
Interesting take on that. A lot of pressure, and can the Cowboys keep this core group together? This core group will be together. Diggs is not going anywhere. CeeDee Lamb's not going anywhere. Neither is Dak Prescott. It's funny to me that, you know, the Dallas Cowboys, they first show the list where the Cowboys offense has averaged over 30 points, something that is a record, tying records. And you can't honestly look at it and say that the Cowboys had the best offensive line, because what we've always heard about the Cowboys is, of course, Dak is, you know, he's a bus driver. He's a bus driver. He's got Zeke Elliott, who's feasting, best offensive line in football. He's got incredible wide receivers. You didn't look at that last year and say, we had the best offensive line in football. That was the Eagles. Or you could say the Kansas City Chiefs had a great offensive line. In win percentage, pass protection, win percentage in pass protections, the Cowboys were 28th. 28th. That's not great. You didn't have a 1,000-yard rusher last year between Zeke and Tony Pollard. You didn't. You had one great receiver in CeeDee Lamb. I don't know that you had a game-changing tight end like a Jason Witten or a Kelsick or a Kittle. And you lost one of your best offensive linemen before training camp. Yet, somehow, coming back from thumb surgery, that guy and this offense still averaged 30 points. Now, you can go ahead and say it's garbage time because that was the other knock that we had. But if you had that situation and you look and say, okay, Tyler Smith is healthy, Tyler Smith has got a year under his belt, you've got a better backup in Chimo Igatu, you've got another proven wide receiver, you got a Michael Gallup that's going to be better, you've got your young tight ends that have a year behind them. I don't know how you look and say that offense that was one of the top ones gets worse. I think it gets better. It gets better, especially if your defense is anything like we believe, that they're going to be able to stop the run and force teams to be more one-dimensional and continue to give you short fields because they're taking away the football. And that's the thing that's kind of lost in the mix when people talk about the offense and the defense. The offense helps the defense. The defense helps the offense. And vice versa. And a lot of times your offense success is because your defense is doing well. And as Joe Burrow said, having a great quarterback isn't enough. You have to have great players around him. But then again, Dak Prescott haters, they don't understand any of that. I hope you guys have a great day. I got a lot to do here. I'm working in the workshop. I may do a live stream in the workshop while I'm making these spindles and showing you where we're actually taking old wood and making new pickets for the deck. We'll be doing our live stream at 5 o'clock here for the Zoom call, and we'll bring you any news on the Dallas Cowboys. I hope you're having a great one, and I'll see you soon.
Our coach here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.
You did one hell of a job, and the only thing else I got to say is